If you want a dish that's fast, tasty, and packed with flavor, Ka Prao is the way to go. This is the version I like to make. It's really easy to replicate, and it leverages ingredients that are available at most US grocery stores. The meat is up to you. I really like the version with ground pork, but you could use ground chicken or ground beef, and it would be just as tasty. From start to finish, this is ready in pretty much the time it takes to cook a pot of rice. Here's how I make it. We'll start this dish with a paste made from chilies and garlic. This, along with a fish sauce, is the main flavor component for the dish. You could do this in a mortar and pestle. If you had one, that would be traditional, but I'm just gonna use a food processor. Remove the stem from your chilies and add those to the food processor along with 7 cloves of garlic. Blend that until completely broken down, but still a little bit chunky. You'll get great results with a paste like this. You smart viewers will notice I didn't say which type of chilies. That's because I can't seem to find bird's eye chilies anywhere in any nearby grocery store. Serranos are pretty widely available, and if you use 3 to 4 of them, you can get some really nice heat and flavor in the dish. If you want to be traditional, seek out those bird's eye chilies, but if you're just shopping at your regular US grocery store, go for serranos. Slice a lime so we have a little cheek to squeeze on near the end, and begin work on your green beans. I like to include green beans just to round out the dish and get a few more veggies in my diet, but it's up to you. Take a handful around 5 ounces or so and cut them into bite-sized pieces. Wash them and put these in a microwave-safe dish because I'm lazy and that's gonna save us a ton of time in the actual frying of the dish. Ka Prao would often be made in a wok, but I don't actually own one, so a cast iron is my next best bet. This is gonna be able to get really, really hot, which we need, but because of the size difference and the shape difference, the cast iron just isn't gonna get as hot as a wok would. That's gonna keep us from browning the pork and stir frying the beans together. So if I microwave them as a cheat code so that they're just cooked and tender, I can mix them in right at the end and it saves us a lot of time. The last thing we need for prep is basil, and this is gonna follow the trend of unconventional ingredients here. The Ka Prao part of the dish translates to holy basil, which is impossible to find near me. Like straight up, even in the H-Marts, 99 ranches, I can't seem to find it. According to what I was reading, regular basil is much closer to the flavor of holy basil than a Thai basil would be, which is great because I tend to have a lot of basil left over from spaghetti sauces, pizzas, and just the cooking that I tend to do on a daily basis. This is one of those little clamshells of basil, and I remove the stems and roughly chop the leaves. No need to get fancy here. These are gonna wilt in the heat of the pan and shrink in size by a lot. The seasoning for this dish is really centered around the salty richness of fish sauce, which is basically the essence of anchovy. It's super, super delicious and full of a ton of umami and richness. Mix together 5 teaspoons of fish sauce with 1 teaspoon of dark soy, 1 teaspoon of light soy, 1 teaspoon of oyster sauce, and 1 teaspoon of sugar. This is the sauce, seasoning, and flavor component of pretty much the entire dish. That, along with our aromatics, create something that is delicious and exciting. With all of our prep done, we can put some jasmine rice on to cook. As always, wash your rice till it runs clear and cook in a rice cooker with 1-to-1 ratio of rice to water. Add in a large pinch of salt and you're gonna be balling with some fluffy and fragrant jasmine rice ready in about 15 to 20 minutes. For the last step, pop your beans into the microwave for 1.5 minutes to finish our prep work. This time keeps the beans slightly crisp, but cooks them enough so that they're no longer raw. The rice is basically our timer for the Ka Prao. So grab 1 pound of ground pork from the fridge and we can head over to the stove. As I mentioned earlier, I'll be using a large cast iron for the cook, and I'll grab a small pan to fry up an egg for the topping. To make up for the fact that we don't have a wok, I'm gonna get this cast iron ripping hot. Let it sit over a medium-high heat for long enough to get to about the temperature you would want to sear a nice steak in. Add in a good squeeze of cooking oil and then immediately add in your chili garlic paste. Be sure to keep your vent on high so you don't like pepper spray yourself with the chilies and garlic, and keep them moving around the pan just to make sure that they don't burn. Once the garlic has taken on a little bit of color, add in your ground pork and begin breaking it up with a stiff spatula. The pork's got a lot of fat in it, but if your pan is looking a little bit dry, you can add in a little more oil just to help with the cooking. The pork's gotta cook in stages. It's gotta release its water before we can get into the full browning mode. So keep it moving over medium-high heat. It's gonna go from pink to gray, then it's gonna release its water, water's gonna cook off, and that's when you're gonna get the frying and the browning and the deliciousness happening. As long as your heat is high enough, this shouldn't take too long. Once your pork is browned to your liking, turn the heat down to a low and pour in your sauce mix. This is where you can also add your green beans and completely coat them in this saucy, porky, spicy goodness. Turn the heat off and add in your basil. You don't want to put this on the heat or it's gonna basically wilt and turn black immediately. You want to keep that freshness, that fragrance from the basil to really permeate the entire dish. The last piece of the puzzle is gonna be to squeeze in the lime that we cut earlier, and that is gonna bring this whole dish into this beautiful balance of spicy, sweet, salty, and tangy. If, like me, you're frying an egg, be sure to keep the pan over the warm stove until we're ready to serve. But if you're doing no egg, just dive in right now. For a crispy fried egg, which would be very traditional with Pad Ka Prao, get a small frying pan hot over medium heat, and then when it's hot, add in enough oil to coat the bottom and then some. Crack in your eggs and they should sizzle and bubble right away. Honestly, you can see my oil needed to be a little bit hotter. I like to baste my whites with the hot oil so they don't get that like snotty, undercooked texture. Season these with salt and then remove them from the pan, set them on a paper towel to drain. If your oil is hot enough, they shouldn't stick, and that's where you can see the mistake that I made. For our plate up, lay down a bed of that beautifully fluffy jasmine rice we made, spoon on your Pad Ka Prao, and add in your crispy fried egg with the runny yolk. The complexity of this dish is really only matched by the ease in making it. This takes about 20 minutes and the end result is so much more than the sum of its parts. It's spicy, it's salty, it's fragrant, it's bright, it's fresh. Oh man, this is like my new go-to when it comes to weeknight meals. All the prep is done in minutes and the cook barely takes any longer than that. This really is a wonder of a weeknight meal. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you being here. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave it a like and subscribe. I want to say welcome to all the new subscribers here. There's been an influx of people recently and I just really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. I also want to give a massive shout out to the amazing people supporting me directly on Patreon through patreon.com/CameronMarty. These people have decided that my work is worth supporting and it just means the world to me. So thank you so much. If you want to check out how to make your own pizza dough so you can get some really amazing results without needing a pizza stone, go ahead and watch this video I made last week. Again, thank you so much for being here. Cheers.